anyhow, Neil, I remember covering Sequoia Capital China when you first set up in 2005. That's almost 8 years ago
Yeah, yeah,
now.
8 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's new?
Well, there's not much new. I think we try to do the same thing as we did before. Um, but obviously, we have expanded a little bit in terms of the scope of interest. I remember back 8 years ago, TMT is a key area for us. Today is still, the very important area for us. But we spend more time obviously on healthcare, on consumer, as well as on clean tech as we grow. And as you know, we not just cover the venture investment stage, we also cover private equity as well. So I think we, try to leverage our domain expertise from early stage to more late stage deals. And I find this actually being, very, very helpful for us. Yeah.
To be able to do both the venture capital and the private equity side of things?
Yeah, but we do that in a different way. In the sense, we do along the same sort of area of expertise. Like we look at late stage deal in the TMT area, internet. Could be e-commerce companies where a lot of knowledge already been learned from our experience in the venture space. So that has been I think been tremendous synergy created from these two. Different investment teams. Yeah.
What's more fun for you personally in terms of deal sourcing and?
You mean between these two?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just different. If you talk about like attachment to the company, clearly if you are investing a very early stage and if you see how they grow into a very substantial company, you get probably more sort of satisfaction, like sort of ownership, like not just ownership in the sense of how much you own the company, but also you feel that you has been going through typically bumpy road, I would say, up and downs, and you finally make it to very substantial company. Whereby growth company, I would say you still have a lot of help to the company, but it's obviously when you invested, the company is more substantial, and probably the attachment is slightly weaker. I would say this. I mean, in Chinese, we say that in early stage we call it 雪中送炭, and then in a growth stage it's 锦上添花. So naturally, I would say that I guess the early stage venture entrepreneur will probably will actually be more. Closely attached to us because that it could be a very long, bumpy road.
And you're a serial entrepreneur too, with C-Trip and Home Ends. So this must be where your heart is. And I want to ask you: does this kind of operational experience that you had in your career, earlier in your career, do you think that that's helped you as a venture capitalist? Because I mean, you have a really good track record as a venture capitalist. Do you think that operating experience helped you, or what is really the secret to your success?
Yeah, I think this is I would say, at least to me, tremendously helpful. And it's actually very much the same sort of thoughts, ideas I've been trying to run Sequoia China, because when we expanded from, for example, TMT into other areas like healthcare and clean tech and consumers, we try to actually find people from the operation side as well. In fact, it's actually probably more challenging to do so, because if you look at the TMT area, the internet, the mobile area, there are a lot of venture capitalists themselves has been entrepreneur or has somewhat involved, engaged, right? But if you look around for consumers and clean techs and healthcare, seldomly you will find this type of talent, because most of people coming from banking, consulting, which is fine. We do need those type of talent, but there will be a limited number of talent which actually have those kind of operating experience. So I think for us, one of the challenges that how to make sure you build a team with a mix of talents. And it's not easy because if you're coming from operation background, I think you need a period of time where you transition yourself from a operation guy, an operation mindset guy to an investor mindset guy. And I don't think everyone, going to be very successful, through that, transition. But I think if you have a strong team, you have a strong culture, you might able to helping them to transit in a better way.
So as long as we're talking successes and failures and transitions, have you had any failures?
For sure, I think I think every year, I mean, you just said that, obviously you said that you guys are being successful. I don't know how to really define that. Frankly, each year passed, I look at myself and look at our team and say, wow, we made X, Y, Z mistakes again, or this is a mistake again, and each year there's so many regrets. But I think the fun of this business is that you learn from the mistakes and hopefully you don't repeat it twice. And I mean, for the same era, and then at the same time, you every year look back, say, oh, I'm learning a little bit more this year than last year. So for me, I think that the very satisfaction of this job is that I have been learning a lot in the last 8 years, really a lot.
What was the number one lesson?
First of all, I think at least I think my domain knowledge in myself has expanded from just be someone who understand a bit of internet, probably a bit of a consumer to broadly sort of a few areas. For example, I probably know a little bit more about clean tech and healthcare. Myself today against 4 or 5 years ago, and it's actually not easy. I don't know how we can do that in China, but if you look at U.S., sometimes I'm very envious of them because they do not have a lot of investment opportunities in other areas. So they just focusing on in the information technology world. That's fine. But as a partner in a major, I think or active China venture capital firm, you have to be versatile. You have to understand healthcare a little bit, right? So I always joke myself like, oh, I'm kind of a 赤脚医生. Try to understand those medical related area of expertise. It's not easy. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not a good chemist. I'm not a very good chemistry student when I was in high school. Maybe that's why. And I try to learn, but I feel it's actually very fulfilling, experience for me.
What's the hottest market right now? What are you looking at Sequoia?
If you heard this is actually hot, then it's first of all it's probably too late. Then secondly, that's something you have to be very, very cautious about. Hopefully that you need to get into this so-called hot area, not maybe 6 or 3 months or 9 months before other people think this is hot, right? In fact, I think if you're looking at the last 8 years, one of the lessons sort of learned that if this is so-called too hot, then there's too many capital chasing, too much capital chasing some hot ideas, and there's a lot of sort of similar ideas, similar model. You may not need to very wonderful results. So I tend not to think that this so-called hot area, but rather if you can a little bit sort of forward-looking, which is not easy. It's always a challenge. I hope I have the magic, but I don't. That you can see things a little bit, ahead of the time, 6 months, 12 months, and that, oftentimes people look at Hinder side, oh, I knew this is going to come in. Like, for example, in the consumer space, 3 years ago, I talked to a number of research analysts. Again, not try to criticize, the analysts, but I'm talking about the research analysts in the banking world. Most of them probably do not realize how big an impact I think internet is creating for retail distributing companies. But I'm actually a bit surprised. I don't want to say who it is, but I talked to one of the ranked analysts, and he cannot tell me what's the difference between 360 buy and Venko. I don't know if Chen Yan is here or like. So I mean, I'm not trying to say which one is better model or whatever, but the fact is, a ranked consumer analyst 3 years ago do not understand the difference between two. That shocks me completely. But then if today clearly everybody will understand, and people clearly understand that the internet has creating so much impact on offline on retail companies tremendously. Not just retail not just retailer, but also product companies, right? Apparel industries, cosmetics, etc. So that ability to think sort of through before the things really come to you, that is the really, I think, the skill set of a venture capitalist. Besides other things, obviously you need to read people right, you need to understand technology well, etc. But and frankly, I'm still learning, and I hope someone have the magic to do that.
Where do you think we are right now in the China venture cycle? Are there too many startups chasing too little venture capital today, and or the opposite?
The last, I would say, 5, 6 years has been stable. Um, let's put it this way: things has been dramatically changed against the time when I started C-Trip, because at that time, it definitely supply demand is not balanced. For a reasonably, I would say, good company in terms of good, team, good business model, you may not be easy to find, the right money at the right time and at the right valuation. But today, I think it's rare that um, obviously you never know how they're gonna grow into, but a kind of a reasonably set up startup are not able to find money. They are pretty sure they're gonna find money, and there are a lot of people gonna wait in the line. So this is definitely has been a lot more competitive as an investor. But clearly, this is actually very benefit to the to the entrepreneur, and even more so today. In the early, in the very early stage, there are a lot of angel investors, which is active, and this has been very helpful because I remember back, 12, 15 years ago, there are not many angels around willing to put money into work for those very, very early stage startups. There's very few. A lot of those people just personal money and his savings and try to jumpstart his company. Today, the source of funding is a lot more diversified.
How many deals has Sequoia Capital China done over the past year?
Excuse me?
How many deals has
I don't I don't remember the number. You mean the last 8 years?
the last year?
I think we try to keep a stable, I would say, pace. Every year, I would say roughly 15, I would say, across 15, probably slightly plus, and that's including both venture deal as well as growth capital deals.
Any IPOs over the past year?
Last year we have 3 Asia IPO and a IPO in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Yeah, and one more, which is Hong Kong IPO. One in US, one in Hong Kong.
Anything in the pipeline that you can?
Well, I mean,
signal?
everyone, it's difficult to talk about pipeline for Asia, right? Because they are in the pipeline. Everyone know it.
Well,
You can
I
go
guess
to
I'm thinking NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange.
well, I think that there are.
I know you have a number listed already on both exchanges.
Yeah, I think there's a few. I think for Hong Kong as well, for Nasdaq. I don't know when they're gonna launch it, because again, one is market timing. The other is that I hope some of those companies might need to grow a little bit more, a little bit bigger before they tap the market. And obviously, I do think there's probably more companies try to list in the Asian market as well.
That's a good alternative. Do you have any advice for young entrepreneurs out there in the audience?
I think one thing which I've been sort of observing is that if you're looking at the U.S. startups, right, and especially some of those emerging leaders, I actually visited a few of them in the last 6 to 9 months. There's a few interesting observations. One is that most of those actually nowadays based in San Francisco instead of in Silicon Valley. Secondly, I was asked I was asked to sign an NDA even before I can enter their office, which I think is important. I think we probably should do that in China as well. I think I don't know if you observe that. And then thirdly is a good number of those entrepreneurs told me that, oh, I built this company, I will start this company. Very clearly told me that I want to change the way people live and study and work. And they say that, I think, deep from their heart. And because of that, I think they oftentimes try to find a product or services which really try to address their needs, right? Now, I think, again, in China, there's still a lot of companies try to learn from what other people have been done, which is great, which is still fine. But then I hope to see more and more real original ideas and original business models and products and services, which again, deep from your heart and say, I want to change the world. Maybe that's too much of a bigger ambition, but I think that's a wonderful one. If someone most of entrepreneurs can think that way, I think that should be a very, very good sort of advanced sign that we are getting to a new stage.
What's the biggest mistake that you see entrepreneurs making when they come to pitch Sequoia?
I don't think there's any mistake per se. I think they all come with.
Well, why do some make the cut and others don't?
Um, I don't think I don't call it mistake because again they're different stage, and there's sometimes that I don't agree with them, but it then and it turned out to be they are correct, and I'm wrong. It's actually happen all the time, and I think there's always that questions cannot be answered properly. Same for me. When I was a C-trip and I come to some of those venture capitalists and they ask my questions, I can't answer them. I know I can't answer them. But I think that's okay. I think as long as people understand there are uncertainty around those, there's those questions need to be keep in mind and be thoughtful. I think that's the point. You can't have the perfect answer, at a very early stage, and we need to have some tolerance for mistakes. If you're looking at many entrepreneurs, they actually try their luck in their first efforts. It may not be successful, then try it again. And in fact, among many of our entrepreneurs, a good number of them, not all of them, but are actually a second-time entrepreneur, like Jack, for sure. And there's others as well that have been done a wonderful job in their second or third try.
Well, as a segue to our next panel, which is going to be talking about the future and trends and outlook, what's your number one prediction for China venture, let's say over the next 2-3 years?
I think it is an area which continue to creating some wonderful companies. If you look at U.S., every 2 to 3 years, there's billion-dollar created companies created. It's the same kind of for China, and that's something why people spend so much time on this sector. And the other observation I have is that maybe we're going to see more successful companies in the enterprise space than before. I mean, we clearly have seen a lot of wonderful companies in Baidu and Tencent and Ali's and last 10, 15 years, all the consumer internet and the mobile space. But if you look at
what about big data? Is that on the radar?
I don't understand what people mean by big data. Big data in terms of collecting the data, or it's the software analyzing it, or using big data to do finance transaction. I don't understand big data exactly mean. But I do feel that there's a growing need on the enterprise side to actually have more automation. Let's use a more mundane word. I mean, automation. I don't know about cloud. Yeah, obviously, cloud, there's an infrastructure there. And clearly, because of rising human resources costs, rising rental for, and over transaction costs, that the enterprise need to have more software to addressing their needs. This is exactly happening in the U.S. back probably 20, 30 years ago, and it's happening in China.
Okay, that's great, Neil. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca.